If you've been following my Instagram for quite some time now, you've seen some of my gear. You've seen my camera case, unloading, setting up the cameras, getting ready for a wedding. Those reels have been out there, but I haven't made a YouTube video dedicated on my camera gear. And well, you knew it was going to be inevitable. At some point I had to make it, and this is that video. And today I'm going to be talking about my 2026 wedding filmmaking kit. I'm not holding back on anything, and I'm going to make it easy for you guys if you're watching and tuning in. I'm going to break it up in different chapters by the type of gear I'm going to be talking and discussing and showcasing, all that fun stuff. If you're new to the channel, my name is Javier. I've been a wedding filmmaker now for the past 9 years, and for the past year I've been more of a destination filmmaker, traveling all over across the United States and even abroad as well. And look, I make YouTube videos to share my perspective, share my journey, and share some of the gear that I have and collected along the way. So if you're interested in following the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you find this video to be extremely valuable, please go ahead and hit the like button and leave a comment down below, as it encourages me to make more videos like this. So the first piece of gear we're going to talk about is camera cases. My main camera case I've been using now for the past 10 months is the Pelican 1615 Air case with the Trek Pack dividers. Look, this case is pretty expensive, but it's extremely well worth the money. I've owned it now for the past 10 months, and the reason I picked up this case is because it can hold all of my camera gear and still be pretty compact. And paired with the Trek dividers, it allows me to get the perfect tight fit with my camera equipment, my lenses, my accessories. Everything fits in this case. It makes it extremely easy for me when I am driving across the state, knowing that all my gear is absolutely protected with this case. I've also went ahead and picked up their lights and installed it into the case. That way, even at the end of a wedding day, I can still pack up my gear case and have some lighting to be able to see where everything goes. This case has been extremely well. I can't say anything bad about it. The only time will tell when it comes to longevity, but we all know Pelican has a strong brand behind them, and so I don't expect anything less in terms of quality with this case. My travel case that I use is the Nanook 935. This is the case I use when I am traveling on airplane because it can fit on a carry-on and can also be checked in with me. Now here's one of those things that upgrades I've added to it is TSA locks. That way, in case we know the dreaded situation, the bins are full on the overhead and you have to check in your camera equipment. It's happened to me before in other airlines, and I decided to put those TSA locks just to give me some comfort, and also has some air tags in there, that way I know it's with me. And I haven't had any issues when checking in the bag when needed. I don't tend to do that. I always try to keep it with me on the overhead, and there is some hacks I can give you on a separate video on how you can ensure that you're always gonna get an overhead bin when you're traveling with your gear, and that way your stuff doesn't have to get checked in. But I'll save that for another video. The 935 has been exceptionally well. It can hold a lot of equipment. The way I use it, it can hold up to 4 different cameras, which is amazing, depending how it's configured. And I'll show you the cameras I use because it's all relevant to the camera and the equipment that you use. But the 935 Nanook has held up pretty well, and I can't complain about it. My camera bag of choice is the Nomadic McKinnon 35-liter camera bag. Man, that was awful. But look, this bag, we've seen it when it launched out. This is the version 1. They have a version 2 now out, but the version 1 has held up extremely well for me. It does have a little wear and tear as usual, right? And I've been traveling like crazy for the past 13 weeks, and so it does have some wear and tear marks on it. But this bag is made with exceptional quality. Nomadic is an exceptional brand, and look, I'm not affiliated with any of these brands that I'm talking about today, so this is my honest review, my honest experience with these brands and these products that I use for my business, and I can say nothing bad about Nomadic. Honestly, they've been a great brand. I've also heard from other filmmakers that have used the brand. They have a lifetime warranty. If something happens to the product that's a manufacturing default, they're able to replace the product or find a solution for you, and I think that's important. And you're going to see a theme here that I try to stay with a good name brand, because if you invest a lot, I'd rather cry once than have to spend out more money by buying something else that's cheaper or something of that nature. I'd rather buy something that's quality and has a guarantee behind it, and that always comes with a reputable brand. And Nomadic has been one of those brands that I absolutely love. I also own their camera sling, the 13-liter McKinnon camera sling, and it's been an amazing addition to it. I use it with me all the time for wedding day. It holds my most essential gear, like the batteries, the audio packs, and audio cables, and some creative elements that I have in that bag, and it's held up exceptionally well. I can't say nothing bad really about Nomadic. The quality stands for itself, and even my suitcase, my check-in suitcase, is a Nomadic product as well. And I've been traveling again 13 weeks straight, and before it looked beautiful, now it has some wear and tear, but my equipment and my clothing, everything has arrived with no issues, no cracking, anything on the case, no damages. The wheels are still rolling, everything works as it should, and that is something that I can honestly stand behind because the product has served me well in my travel experience. All right, let's talk about cameras and what are the cameras I'm using for my 2026 wedding season. My A and B cameras are the Sony FX3. Now, I've been using these cameras now for the past 2 years, and I absolutely love it. Look, I've gone through almost every camera manufacturer. I started with Sony and back in 2016, then I went to Fuji, and then I went to Canon with the R6, the C70s, and then I made the switch back to Sony with the FX3. And look, I have no complaints. This camera has been a solid workhorse. When I found out that the update was going to be given to the Sony FX3 that's going to have shutter angle, that made me inclined more to go ahead and switch from Canon to Sony, because that was one of those things that I just hated. I could find solutions for the ND filters, which I'll talk about here shortly, because the C70 had them built in and that was a nice luxury. But what I absolutely disliked is changing frame rates and having to change my shutter speed every single time. And when the update came out where it now had shutter degree, that made it, or shutter angle, that made it so much easier for me to switch over to the Sony line, and I've appreciated the camera ever since. Because I travel so often, I wanted to have a small camera, and the FX3 gives me that solution. It solves that problem for me. And also, it can do everything that I need it to do. It's full frame, great in low light, it can take in time code, I can modify in different ways. I can use my phone as a monitor. I can pair with other monitors. There's so much you can do with this camera. It's up to your imagination, and Sony did a really good job with the Sony FX3. And so I have an A and B camera. I have two of them, one as a backup, and I also now own two Sony FX30s. The FX30s have served me well for the past year now as my C and D cameras. I primarily use the FX30s for ceremony and sometimes for speeches, depending on the flow of the wedding. If I can't switch a lens to the FX3, I just go ahead and just grab the FX30 as is and film with it and capture the speeches. And the FX30 has served me well. When it comes to image quality in both cameras, is there a difference? Absolutely, there is a difference. It's full frame versus APS-C, and you have different base ISOs, so it's not the same look. But can you match it and make it work well in post? Absolutely. If you've been watching my films and you appreciate my work, you've seen a mixture of my FX30 and also my Sony FX3, especially if you watch parts of the ceremony. I tend to use it on the left and right side, and then for speeches, I'll use it as the A camera to capture those speeches. And every now and then, I do use the FX30s for some details if it's paired with the 7200mm f2.8. So it all kind of depends, but these are my main workhorse cameras that I've been using, and I haven't had any issues. And I've also updated them to the latest firmwares without any issues. Thank God. Because we all know Sony with their firmware updates can sometimes break your camera, but that's a whole different conversation. Now, the lineup, this is the lineup as it stands right now as of July 9th, 2026. However, it could change because at the end of this month, the Sony FX5 should be announced. I don't know if I'm going to pick one up or not. Kind of depends on the specs and ultimately on the wallet and whether or not it's worth picking up. But regardless, the FX3 and the FX30s have been an amazing camera system to use for weddings. And what I love about it is that I can assign the buttons and the layout to be exactly the same. And I might make a future video on how I customize my FX30 and FX30 for wedding days, so I can be extremely efficient and not having to go through the menu to change so many different things. And there's a lot of other things you might not be taking advantage of on your FX3 and or your FX30 that you could be using to be more creative on those wedding days. My last camera I use at wedding days is my DJI Air 3S. This drone has been a great addition to the fleet. I also do own a DJI Air 3, but I picked the Air 3S back towards the end of 2025 when the DJI ban was about to be activated. And I wanted to have another drone just in case if my Air 3 were to break and I couldn't find another one, I would have a backup. And now I've been primarily using just the Air 3S, and it has been a great addition. I haven't really seen like a quality difference or change. I do believe it has better stabilization and flying and whatnot, but not a big noticeable difference. I love this drone. I think the Air series is the best drone to have if you're a wedding filmmaker, because it's not as big as the Mavic Pro, but also it's not as small as the Mini series. And so it's right in between and allows you to have that stability, but also that portability to be able to travel with and fly with and not to have any issues or have more space when packing gear if you're constantly traveling to different locations. And so this drone has been an absolute amazing addition to the fleet on the camera side, and have no complaints. All right, let's go ahead and talk about monitors. So my main monitor I use is the Portkeys LH5C. It's been an amazing addition to have this monitor. It only costs $200, and the best part about it is it comes with a sun hood. It's extremely light and doesn't take much battery life to power it, and it also has a built-in fan, so you don't have to worry about it getting overheated and dying out on you. I've been using this monitor now since April of this year, and it's extremely compact too as well, so it's been easy to be able to travel with it. I enjoy it. It's 800 nits of brightness, so it's more than enough for me on wedding days, especially with that included sun hood. Other than that, if it didn't have that, I think it would be pretty tough. The other monitor I also use on wedding days, depending on the logistics of the day, I use the iPhone 17 Pro Max. I've been using my iPhone now as a monitor since it came out, honestly. I made sure to buy the Pro Max because it has extended battery life. If you have the regular Pro, it might die within an hour or two. But with the Pro Max and the extended battery life, it does last a lot longer. And also, it can be, I think, 2000 nits of brightness, peak brightness. Now, does it last very long? No, it does not. Does it last long enough? Absolutely. Now, when I am using this setup with the iPhone, I do use it with the USB-C to USB-C cable, and what this does is allows me to have a direct feed from the camera. Is there some latency? Not really. Now, can you change the quality version, what you're displaying on the app? Absolutely, and you can improve it from low resolution to a higher resolution. Still not going to be like 4K resolution like you would with a dedicated monitor, but it still gives you like a 720p type of display. It works well enough because at that point when I'm using that setup is because I care more about the small compactfulness of it, because I'm probably switching between a gimbal and to a handheld setup when I use my iPhone as the main monitor for it. Now, the app that I use, it's Sony's very own app, the Monitor and Control app. It's an amazing app. I love using it. I'm using it right now. It paired with my computer to be able to monitor myself. That way I can see my framing, change settings without having to move at all. And it's one of the big reasons I wouldn't leave Sony either, is because this app is functional for a lot of other things besides just content creation. You can do it for podcasts and other stuff. But I also do use the iPhone 17 Pro Max in its wireless mode with the FX3. So if I'm running a gimbal, I do tend to use my iPhone still as a monitor, so I can just see in a bigger display, and I can do that wirelessly without having to connect or have a longer USB-C to USB-C cable. Now, is there some latency? Absolutely. But does it do well enough? Yes, it does. And I can't complain. And especially, I think with the next generations of cameras, like right now I'm using my Sony a7 IV, there's very low latency because it has Wi-Fi 6. And I believe the FX3 has Wi-Fi 5. So It's a bit outdated, but the newer versions of cameras should be a lot faster because it's a lot faster in latency transmission with my A7 IV. Moving on to lenses. This is going to be a longer section. I have a lot of lenses, but I don't always use all these lenses for weddings, so I'm going to be very specific to my main lenses I do use. And also there is one lens that I'm considering picking up here in the future. Now, my main lens that I pair with my FX3 is the 28-70 f2G Master from Sony. It's an amazing lens. Look, when I want to have a compact setup and I don't want to keep switching lenses, this is the lens that I use. It's the 28-70. Now, I do wish it was a 24 because 28 is still not wide enough at times. So it's tough, but 28, it passes. Now the 70mm, obviously it gives you a lot of range. And if you're pairing it with, let's say, A7 IV, and you can go into a crop mode with it, you can get even extra reach out of that lens because you have more resolution with the A7 V. But on the FX3, you don't have that extra range, but you can use clear image zoom to be able to crop it into the image and just get a little bit more reach out of that lens. So 28-70 has been an amazing addition to weddings. It's over a year now since I've purchased this lens, and I've been using it religiously as my main lens on the FX3. And honestly, it's like 3 prime lenses in one. But the one thing I have to kind of remind myself is that even though it's a zoom lens, is not to get lazy with it. And I might make a whole separate video about that, because there's times where if you're using a zoom lens, you might become a lazy filmmaker. Let's just be honest, because we're not moving, we're not trying to get creative compared when you're using a prime lens. Sometimes with primes, I use, side note, a whole different topic, but I used a prime lens for another wedding not that long ago, and it really made me work for the shot. And sometimes this lens can make you feel very complacent. And so the way I see it now is I try to treat it like a prime lens. I'll have the focal lengths to zoom into or zoom out of based on the situation, but I try to keep it at a certain focal length so I can move myself around and only use a zoom when needed. So that's kind of a good mind frame way to use this lens. Now, if my second shooter doesn't have a 28-70 f2, I am very adamant about keeping the quality consistent across the board, whether it's me shooting with this lens or my second shooter shooting with a lens. And so I ended up trading one of my Sackler tripods, and I traded it for this lens, which is the Sigma 28-45 f1.8. I didn't want to spend another $3,000 on another 28-70 f2, so I traded a tripod. I ended up getting a 28-45 f1.8, and so I usually have my second shooter shoot with this lens at f2. Now, this lens is not the best when it comes to autofocus. I have to be absolutely transparent about that. And Sigma create amazing lenses, but is not on par with the G Master series when it comes to autofocus. It's not the same, but the image quality out of this lens is beautiful. No complaints there, especially when it locks on focus. There's no issues. And I think it's also because the FX3's autofocus is just a bit outdated. And even with my FX3 and the 28-70 f2, it still feels laggy at times compared when I'm using it with the A7 V. So there's that to note as well. When it comes to ceremonies, I believe every filmmaker and photographer needs to have a 70 or 200 millimeter f2.8 in their arsenal. And look, if you're a Sony shooter, there's another lens I'm gonna recommend too as well that I think it's an amazing alternative option if you don't want to have a 70-200. It's picking up a 35-150 f2 to f2.8 lens. That is a great focal length option for ceremonies as well, especially if you're a traveling filmmaker, just because each venue can be different and unique, and it can also serve as a great reaction lens to use for speeches and even for ceremonies. That's a whole different topic. But the 70-200s from Sigma, it's a sports edition. It's been great. They're fairly inexpensive if you're comparing it to the G Master series from Sony. They're about $1,200. You can find them $1,300. and they're exceptional. I only use it for ceremonies and for speeches. Other than that, I don't do photography with them. And every now and then I will use it for cocktail details, but very rare, not often. But for ceremony, these are a must-have lens to have in my arsenal, and I have no complaints. I lied. I actually do have one complaint. The only complaint is that since I do use FX30s and it's a crop sensor lens, it's not really a 70-200. It's more like a 100 to 300 millimeter type of lens. So I do get more reach out of it, and it comes in handy when I'm shooting at a, let's say, a Catholic church, and it's a really big church, and I have tons of room that I need that extra reach, and it comes in handy. But when I'm shooting in a smaller venue, smaller ceremony site, it becomes extremely tough to being able to get a good composition with it because it's so tight. And that has more to do with that I use FX30s that are crop sensor versus if I would be using a full frame at 70 mil, that would be a lot more acceptable and better, honestly, for that situation. So that's why I would recommend, if you're running FX30s, considering picking up the 35 to 150, that could be really great in a lot of varieties and of situations that you may be in. Now I can talk about one of my favorite lenses, or the next two are, and now we're in the section of prime lenses. I own an 85mm f1.4 from Sigma, and you're gonna see that there is a tree. Like, the only G Master lens from Sony that I have is a 28-70. Everything else is from Sigma, and I own the 85 1.4 from Sigma. I love this lens. I think it renders an image very beautiful. It gives that 3D effect and pop, and the 50 mil too as well, but that's the next lens. The 85, I love to use it for cocktail portraits if I ever can and I have the space and the time, but I also do use this lens for photography when I'm just want to photograph my kids, my family, or doing any paid work of that nature. But the 85 is just, it renders an image very beautifully, and so does the 50 1.4. I do use this lens occasionally, depending on what the couple is asking me for in terms of the style of film that they're wanting. If they tell me they want something that feels very luxurious and grand and cinematic, I'm picking up my 50mm f1.4, because for me, that's what this lens interprets: cinematic. I can get and I'm become way more intentional with my shot selection. At 1.4, you can really get that 3D pop, that effect. It stands out a lot more. I tend to use it more just trying to be able to get the best composition when using this lens, and being very intentional with my shot selection when I use this lens. I tend to avoid more of that like documentary feel, which is more like run and gun, and you're running or moving, panning with the camera quickly. I tend not to do that with this camera. I tend to pretend I'm taking a photo, but I'm letting whatever my subject move within the frame rather than me having to move around physically. If I do run it handheld, every now and then I would switch it and pair it with a gimbal, because it'll give you that stabilization. It just renders and comes out a lot better because it's closer to that telephoto length at 50 mil, and it becomes really hard if you're shooting in 23 frames per second, the subject is moving and you move, to get a really nice stabilized image. But the way the 50, the 85 renders an image is beautiful, and I have nothing bad to say. So towards the end of March, I ended up picking up this lens. It's a Tamron 20 to 40 millimeter f2.8. Now, when I initially purchased this lens, it was not for weddings at all. It was for vlogging. It was to document my week in the life as a wedding filmmaker. And so this was the main lens I picked up for that. It's very light, it's compact, it renders an image good enough, because I don't think it renders an image beautifully like the other lenses I mentioned, but it does it good enough. However, I've used it now for 2 weddings, especially if the couple was asking for that more Wes Anderson style, that more fun, moving around type of lens, because that 20 mil does come in handy. Being that it can be pretty wide, I don't know if I'll consider it ultra wide, but it's pretty wide without crazy distortion. It has good autofocus as well. But then the most valuable part is that I can go to 40 mil. That right there is valuable to me, so I can get some type of a compressed image, especially if I don't want to have that ultra wide look. I can just zoom in to 40 mil and use that clear image zoom and get close to 50 millimeters. And I think that is extremely handy. And also it's 2.8 and it's a super light lens. And so I've used it now for 2 weddings, and I think it rendered beautifully for what the couple was envisioning based on the inputs they put on their creative questionnaire. And so I selected this lens as my primary lens instead of my 28-70, and it worked out beautifully because those venues were also very small. They were not large, and I wanted the film to feel bigger than life in itself and feel fun. And so this was the lens option I selected, and I'm glad I did. And I'm glad that I picked up this lens for vlogging, but now I've been every now and then mixing it in with weddings as well to be able to capture that feeling. Now, this lens is an ultra wide lens that I did purchase strictly for receptions, and it's the 16 to 28 millimeter from Sigma f2.8. Now, this lens was purchased for those receptions when dancing on the floor began. And I love this lens because one, is extremely fast with autofocus, like super fast with it. One, I can be close up to people because if you notice during reception, if you have a light on your camera, like the guest comes to you and they start interacting, they start having fun, and they love the light, they love the camera, and well, let's just say that they always get super close to you. And so I have to have an ultra wide so I can get them in frame enough, and the 16 to 28 millimeter is just amazing for that. Now, I haven't been traveling with this lens lately, but I'm gonna make sure I take it with me. Some of the weddings I've been going to, I haven't been in reception long enough, so it didn't feel necessary to have this lens. And also I would take my 20 to 40 mil because I'm vlogging, and so I did have that at my disposal. However, when it came to those weddings here locally, I would always have my 16 to 28 mil. That way for reception, I can just get some extremely fun shots, either in 23, 60 frames per second, or even 120 frames per second. And if you guys want to know more about how I shoot receptions, dancing, let me know in the comments down below too as well, because I could make a whole separate video or take you guys behind the scenes. But regardless, this 16 to 28 millimeter f2.8 lens is exceptional. So when I made the switch from the C70 to the FX3, the 2 things that I care about the most was shutter angle and internal NDs. Well, we all know that the FX3 got the update with the shutter angle. However, internal NDs wasn't going to be implemented anytime soon through a software update. So when I started researching in the market for variable NDs, I found the Peter McKinnon Polar Pro variable ND Helix Maglog system. I think Polar Pro goes before Peter McKinnon, but whatever, you get the point. This system right here is incredibly great. It locks in magnetically first. You know, you can see it attach, and then you twist it, you hear it click, and that click right there lets you know it's attached to the attachment there point pretty well. Now, there has been some issues. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. There's been times where when I first bought everything, received all the adapters, some of the adapters weren't really clicking in place and staying the way they should. So I went ahead and emailed Polar Pro and showed them the examples of what's happening, and they sent me a replacement at no cost, and they were able to ship it immediately. I really love that support. And again, these are very expensive variable ND filters and a very expensive system again, and I love the customer support that I got from Polar Pro. And every one of my second shooters who don't use this system and ended up using it, they liked it and went ahead and purchased it. And so I found that, hey, this is a really good product. And Polar Pro, if you want to send me a code to promote your stuff, like, hey, hit me up, because I'm going to do it anyway, whether you pay me or not. But that's a whole different story. All right, enough about NDs. Audio. Audio is a big deal. Without good audio, your films are going to suffer. I call it the heartbeat of your film. If you don't have good audio and you're not picking up good sound, you may have some good visuals, but it doesn't tell a story. You need the audio, and that's important. All right, enough about that. But what I use is For ceremony and speeches, I use a Zoom F3. It's been an amazing recorder. It's extremely small. Now, I do pair this recorder with another system, and it's called the Tentacle Syncs Track E specifically. You probably saw in the B-roll of my FX3, you saw a little box attached to it, and that's the Tentacle Syncs timecode generators that's attached. I'm not going to go super in depth in this video about timecode, and if you want me to make a video about timecode, let me know. I'll make a video about it. But essentially, to make it very dummy proof, is that on the camera, there's a timecode box on there. And then for my microphones, I use the Tentacle Syncs Track E's to record 32-bit flow, to also monitor my audio wirelessly, and to also I pair it with the Zoom F3 via the line out connection, so that way I can have audio go into the Tentacle Sync Track E's, be able to monitor my Zoom F3 from a distance because they're connected, so I can see that, and just have an extra backup recording. Now, the Zoom F3, to be specific, it doesn't have adjustability when it comes to changing like the volume levels within it. It just has one input, but there's different profiles. So if you're using like mic, then it has one profile, a certain setting in terms of the amount of decibels that go into it versus line. And so there's a different profiles, if that makes sense. So when you connect it, and for example, you're doing an audio test with the DJ and you're seeing that you're barely getting anything, even though he has it cranked up all the way, you probably have to switch it from mic to line, and that way you'll see like, oh wow, I'm getting a lot of feed now, like we're good to go. And it's 32-bit float regardless of anything. But if you have a good setting or profile in place, then you already know that you're going to have a better range, dynamic range, to be able to correct the audio later on in post. All right, going back to the Tentacle Syncs Track E's. Now, the reason I use these ones specifically instead of like a Tascams, I think the DR10Ls, I think they have a different version of them now. It's been so long, but I've been using these recorders now for the past 4 years. And what makes it amazing is that I can sync all of my footage later on in post via software, and my whole timeline is laid out, and that allows me to be extremely efficient when it comes to editing and finding moments within a wedding day. Because my style of film is very predicated on sound bites and candid moments, it makes it extremely easy to be able to do that with the system. I can go more in depth later on in a different video, but these are what I use. For the Tentacle Sync Track E's, I do pair it with the Sennheiser MKE2 lav mics. I have 3 of these mics, and this is how I break it down. One mic, one of the lav mics, is a nude color, and that goes on the bride, and I attach it on her dress. The second one goes on the groom, and I attach it on his shirt underneath. Nobody can see, it's inconspicuous, and allows me to get really good candid audio. And then the third one, well, that's a backup, or if I'm mic'd up for wedding day behind the scenes, that's how I'm able to capture it, and I mic myself up the same exact way I'll mic up the groom. And so I have 3 of them. I pair it with an Ursa like mini clip. It's kind of a protector, so I can put a sticky on there and then stick it onto the dress. And that's the way I've been using, this system. And I do mic up the bride for the whole wedding day up until speeches, and it's been an easy combination. Now, if the bride's dress does not allow me at all to be able to use the wired setup, because maybe it's extremely tight, or the dress style just won't work at all because it might show the wire or something of that nature, then I go to a different mic, and it's the DJI Mic 3. Why do I use this mic specifically? It's because it can also accept time code, and specifically you can jam sync it, and it keeps the time perfectly. You set it up in the system. I can make a whole dedicated video about it too, on the time code stuff, if you guys are interested. And I do put it on my FX3. However, I don't connect the audio at all to my FX3. I only use the internal recorded files from the Mic 3. I don't use any transmitted files or audio at all. And you could say hey, you can just leave it connected. That way you can get backup audio. And I could. However, I like to have my scratch audio from the FX3, and I just use the mics on board the FX3 for scratch audio, and that's served me well for the majority of everything I've done so far. So that's how I use the Mic 3. Lastly, I do use the DJI Mic 2, but on a sleeve. And that is my backup microphone for speeches and for ceremony with officiants, especially if they have a mic. I have the sleeve, I can attach it right there, and it serves me well because I can get 32-bit recorded files from that mic, and well, it saved me a lot in a pinch, so no complaints when it comes to that mic, and it has not interfered with any wireless transmission when the DJs are using, their own mics and their own systems. Do not let them pressure you into saying that, oh yeah, it's going to interfere with my system. It does not. It has not. And it probably will not either, to be honest. Now, do I use the receiver transmitter, the receiver? No, I only use a transmitter. I don't bring the receiver with me. I use it like an internal recorder. That's the way I've approached it. I haven't had any issues with transmission loss from any of the DJs I've worked with. And even the ones that said, oh, it's going to cause an issue, never caused them any issues at all. So just want to clarify that. Now, if the DJ absolutely says no, then I say, okay, that's fine. I respect it. Your system is your stuff. I'll get the input through here. And that's also why I mic up the bride and groom regardless. And I also do put a mic on the officiant. So that way everybody's mic'd up. Anything that I grab from the DJ's soundboard or their speakers or anything of that nature, that is backup for me. That is not primary audio for me at all. That's just backup. So that's how I kind of run my whole audio system. All right, let's go ahead and talk about stabilizer. And the number one stabilizer I have is myself. Look, I shoot handheld majority of the time. I'm a pretty big guy. See, on camera, I'm sitting down, but I'm like 6'3", 6'4", and 250. Like, I'm not a small guy, so the FX3, a 2870 f2, doesn't weigh that much for me at all. I can hold this camera extremely steady. I've been filming now for the past 9 years, so I know the techniques of how to be able to film properly handheld. And so I'm the number one stabilizer. But I still rely on other things, tripods, gimbals, and other, monopods as well. So when it comes to tripods, my favorite tripod I've ever owned is the Small Rig Trivex Potato Jet tripod. Wow, that's a mouthful. Oh man. But this tripod, I purchased only the legs, and I have two of them. I have the carbon fiber editions. I have the version 1 and then the version 2 of it. The only way you can see the difference is by the sticker. One is gray and the other one is black. Other than that, do I notice any quality difference? Not really. It might be some internal differences with the two in the mechanism and the clutch. Other than that, I don't see a difference when using either tripod. And honestly, it's right behind me. I love using this tripod for ceremony and speeches. When filming local weddings, I make sure to bring them both. However, when I'm traveling, I only bring one of them with me, and I can still get around the wedding day capturing everything. Now, typically when I do a local wedding or a wedding here in Florida, I can take my full kit with me. I do have my 2 Trivex tripods. I also do have my travel tripods from Peak Design. I have a carbon fiber version and then an aluminum version of the Peak Design travel tripod. They've been extremely well. I've been using them since 2021. They've held up. They've been durable. Anytime I've had an issue with one of the products in it, I email Peak Design, their warranty, and they'll send me the replacement part for their product. That has been, again, exceptionally important for me when it comes to investing into the right gear, is being backed by a company that sends you a part if something is wrong with it, because these tripods are not cheap. They're very expensive, and that's extremely important to me by having a lifetime guarantee. Now, it is limited, so obviously if it's you doing the stuff, wear and tear, then it is what it is. But if it's something of their manufacturing and their issues, then they're going to send you replacement parts. And for me, it's been the bottom of the leg has been an issue that was replaced. They sent me a whole new leg instead, and then also like a knob in the mechanism, which was like 3-4 years ago. They sent me a replacement part, it's been working great ever since. So no complaints. I can fit 2 of the Peak Design travel tripods in the Nomadic camera bag, the 35-liter one, and I can travel without having to worry about not having a tripod on with me or checking it in. I can keep it all in carry-on. And these stabilizers, these tripods, are extremely important to my kit because without them, I can't capture the most important moment, being the ceremony, in a way that feels like you're watching a movie, because I can cut to the 4 different camera angles and they're steady. Look, those Peak Design, don't let the size of the Peak Design travel tripods fool you. I put on, when I had the C70s, I paired it with also the 7200 from Canon, the RF version, with the C70, and I mounted it on like this tripod, and it held up extremely well. And even in high wind conditions, it's not gonna tip over. It is not easily. Now, if you put like a coat or something on it, then you create drag and that's gonna make it flip over. But not when you have this design and you're using it with a C70. I use it now with an FX3 and a 7200, and it works extremely fine. Or if I'm using my handheld rig with a 20-70, in the FX3 and a monitor, no issues, haven't had it tip over at all. Only time it tipped over is because I took off my jacket because it was raining to cover my camera, and it created drag, and so that made it tip over. Being 100% transparent, it was my fault, not the product's fault. So tripods are extremely important, and these are the 2 brands that I use for weddings when it comes to tripod stabilization. Now, when it comes to monopods, it's a hate and love relationship with me as well. It all depends on the type of film they're trying to create. And as soon as YC Onion released a version 2 of their tripod, I picked up 2 of them. Technically, I have the version 1 and the version 2, so I have them both. The version 1 was replaced because the original one I had was just a failed mechanism. Now the version 2 of the monopod that I have now, that's a lever, you squeeze it, goes up and down, is extremely great. It's worked extremely reliable for me. It's been amazing, no complaints with it. And monopods is one of those items that if you don't have it, sometimes you wish you had it in the moment, and sometimes you don't want to have a tripod with you at all. And monopods, they make me feel, actually makes me shoot way more intentional as well. And if I'm using that 50mm combination with the FX3, I'm gonna want to be able to use it with a monopod. Just slow myself down, be more intentional, be prepared for those first looks or any other moments. So this monopod really helps in those situations. The number one thing I always tell anybody who works with me is that do not trust a monopod to be a tripod. Do not at all whatsoever. And look, the base of this monopod is very stable. However, it's not a tripod, and don't use it like one. I'm telling you, your camera is going to get damaged, or someone's going to get whacked in the head if they're sitting down and you have the camera behind them. It is what it is, all right? I'm just warning you. Don't treat it like a tripod. However, what you can treat like a tripod is the base paired with the fluid head on the top, and you can treat that like an actual tripod because it's meant to do that, and there's not like a 4-foot pole in between it. So you can do that combination and it'll work really well. Lastly, when it comes to the ultimate stabilizer that you can have with you when you're walking around, it's gonna be a gimbal. Like, nothing is gonna beat it. Gimbal, it is what it is. I have one, I actually have 2 of them. But the one I use is the DJI RS4 Pro. This gimbal has been exceptional. I travel with it. It's helped me in many situations. I cannot complain about this gimbal. I love it. I don't use it every single wedding. It's kind of like I pick and choose based on the flow, the vision of the film, what I'm thinking about. Now, if I did a lot more commercial work on a consistent basis, then yes, I would be using this gimbal all the time for smooth footage. But when it comes to wedding films and creating wedding films primarily only, I shoot handheld. I use, again, the gimbal as an accessory for a shot or a vision, that I have in mind I want to bring to reality. That's when I use this gimbal. I can pair it easily with the app. I can balance it. And it's been reliable for me in the situations that I've had to use it. And it's nice to be able to pair it with the RS4 Pro FX3 combination, be able to press record via the Bluetooth and not have to touch the camera's record button. That is extremely nice for me. All right, let's go ahead and talk about lighting. Lighting is extremely important when it comes to filming weddings, especially during speeches, dances, other parts of the reception. Lighting plays a big role in the quality of your film. And look, I'm gonna be 100% transparent. Do I need to bring lighting to capture footage when I have the FX3 and 12,800 ISO? For majority of the scenarios, no, I probably don't need it. But is the image gonna look very flat and not look interesting, or feel the environment feel more special because there's a spotlight on them? Yeah, absolutely. Like, you're gonna suffer when you have really good lighting. It's gonna shape the environment, shape the scene, and make your films stand out a lot more. And it provides a really good guest experience because everybody's attention is drawn to the light. So now wherever the light is focused on, that's where people are gonna look. And it's invaluable. I just want to stress that enough. So the lights that I use are the Aperture 60X bicolor lights. I own 3 of them. I've been using them now for the past 5 years. And look, these lights were amazing when they first came out because they had a built-in Fresnel. They were compact enough. But later on, as technology evolves, well, now it's no longer really compact. And its features are nice, but cameras nowadays have amazing ISO capabilities. You know, we have dual base ISO, but now we actually have triple base ISO. And so having these big lights isn't that important anymore because there's other lights in the market. Now, these lights were extremely valuable when they first came out for me because they solved the really big issues with my C70 at the time, being a super 35 sensor lens. So not really great when it comes to low light situations, you know? So having these lights were extremely valuable to me back then. Now they're just very big, they're clunky, they weigh a lot, they take up a lot of space, and I also don't need them anymore. So I'm actually selling them. If you're interested, leave a comment down below, send me a DM on Instagram. Don't know when you're watching this, so I may have it, may not, we'll see. However, these lights were amazing. For the time I had them, they worked extremely well, and they still do, and they're functional, but I don't pick them up anymore, especially ever since my needs changed because I became more of a destination wedding filmmaker. I ended up picking up these next lights, which are the Godox RS60 bicolor lights. These lights are absolutely amazing. They're extremely small. I think they're about the size of my 28-70, which is crazy. And so they are extremely compact, they're powerful enough. They've been able to light ceremonies, speeches, and dances. And look, I don't always use these lights for ceremonies, but there's been some ceremonies that's been very dark and I've had to lit them up. We all run into those scenarios every now and then. But when it comes for these lights specifically, what's nice about them is that you can power them via USB-C, and I have the power anchor banks that I use. And so if I'm using them in multiple scenes throughout the day, I can just attach one of those. They're 160 watt powered, and they'll power the batteries right back up and be ready for reception or dances or speeches, you know, all that fun stuff. But these lights are extremely amazing. You can use them in different situations, and they're powerful. Again, like I said, they're very powerful. They're easy to travel. They can fit in your Nanook 935 case is what I use when I travel. I have 2 of them, but I do plan to buy at least 2 more. That way, when I want to do different type of scenes, I can. And well, they're extremely powerful, and I have no complaints with them. I've been using them consistently now because I'm traveling more often than not, and I don't pick up the Aperture 60X, nor do I miss them. Now, let's talk about some light stands. I own several different brands of light stands. The first ones I picked up were the Manfrotto light stands, and these are the 12-footers. I've had these now about 5 years. They were extremely great when paired with the Aperture 60X bicolor lights because they're extremely larger. However, now I don't use them at all. They're still solid. They're a lot of money to buy, especially at the time. And I think they still are. They're about $500 or so for 3 of them. And I mean, they're incredible light stands. They're going to last you for a very, 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 very long time. So again, I paid once, cried once. They're still going. But my needs did change, and so this is why I have other light stands. And the light stands I'm going to talk about next are the Impact light stands. They have the same design as the Manfrotto, where they can clip on the sides. However, these are 7-footers. They're much smaller. And so for my local weddings now here in Florida, I tend to bring these with me because they're just so much smaller and nimble. And when I travel, I don't bring them. And this is where my next light stands come in play. I bring 2 carbon fiber newer light stands, and they come in handy for me when I'm traveling. They fit in my suitcase, in my check-in case. They're extremely light, so they don't add too much weight to my travel luggage, and it makes it extremely easy for me. If you made it all the way to the end, I just want to say thank you. Look, this video is not short, it's extremely long, and look, I cover a lot of aspects of the gear that I use. And look, I want to put this out here too as well, is that be responsible with the gear that you're purchasing. See, back in 2020, I put myself in a very big financial strain purchasing gear, thinking that the gear was going to help me level up. And look, it did not. It comes from here. It comes from understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're going to model it and use this gear to level up your life. And that's the one thing that I have to say and really express really hard, is that gear is important. It's a tool, and it's going to help you accomplish the thing that you've always desired to create and make. But you are the creator and you are the author. So remember that if you don't have it within you and you don't have a need or demand because you are a business, don't buy the gear. It's going to put you in a very big trouble. Now, if you want to have a call with me and you want to sit down, you want to talk about what you're working on, you want to discuss gear, you want to discuss business, I have a link down below called for the open book sessions. It's 3 one-on-one calls. We do a video call, and they're an hour long. We can discuss topics that you want to talk about, whether it be business, gear, anything else that's related to the creative field of business world. I'm more than happy to talk about and be able to guide you, share from my experiences, the things I went through that can help you be more intentional in the path that you're walking. And if you also want to maximize your business acumen or understanding, or even how to price yourself, I have a resource down below too as well that's fairly inexpensive. And this resource here is extremely amazing. Why? Because one, it's going to let you know where to price yourself to see your profitability. Second, you're going to have a built-in travel dedication Excel spreadsheet, so you can track your couples, track your expenses, and see where you're at within each project that you're at in one simple location and platform. And lastly, is contractor expenses is a big thing. And so I've created this tool to make sure that you have all your months, you fill it in, you have one easy page so that you can summarize and see all your contractor expenses, percentages of where it's going. So that way, as a business owner, you know exactly where your money is heading towards, who is your biggest assets when it comes to contracted work. Because look, if you're a solopreneur, we're going to rely on other people. And for myself, I rely on second shooters, my editor, and anybody comes in contact that helps me build some creatives where I need it to go. And so I need to manage each of these expenses to know, are they a viable asset or are they a liability? And if I'm paying out and it becomes a liability, then I have to see, okay, we're going to move these funds in a different direction. It is what it is. So it's down below. If you guys want to check it out, feel free. But again, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.